I've been learning Korean for a little over 5 months at this point, and I just finished the Korean Academy 1. And except a few minor annoyances, I really liked learning with this course. Since the course is relatively new, there's not a lot of information out about it yet, but I think there are a few things you should know if you consider learning with it and you want to be successful. So here is my review of the Korean Academy 1. There's a Korean Academy 2 too, and other courses for other languages, but since I have not used those, I will not be reviewing those or other Migaku products in this video. I am not sponsored to say anything, and everything I share in this video is obviously based on my experience going through the academy, but I have a link with some extra perks for you that I will share more about later into the video. The Migaku Academy courses are a combination of grammar and vocabulary course in flashcard form that teach you all the most common words, grammar points, and idioms to get started consuming native content. The goal of this course is not to memorize everything and be able to perfectly recite everything by heart, but to familiarize you with the structure of the language and to build a really solid foundation with the basics. That is why the words and grammar patterns taught in this course are really high frequency, meaning they're really common, so that you don't waste your time learning 17 kitchen items and 12 professions before you even know the word for to walk. On the flip side, that means that this course does not follow vocabulary themes, so you won't be learning all the school-related vocabulary first, and then emotion-related vocabulary. The order is a little random. What makes the Academy courses truly unique in my opinion is the format in which they teach you these words and grammar patterns, because the whole course is designed to be 1T, meaning that every single card in the deck will only have one unknown aspect to it, compared to all the cards you learned before it. I found that to make the progression through the course pretty smooth, as the difficulty stays relatively consistent throughout. Let's talk a little more concretely about specifically the Korean Academy structure. It is divided into 22 chapters, and each of these chapters more or less loosely each follow a certain topic like present tense conjugation, counting and time, location and direction, nominalization, formal speech, and so on. Within each chapter, you have between 10 and 20 lessons. These lessons are what introduce you to a new grammar pattern, conjugation, particle, and so on, and they usually consist of a brief intro text, some example sentences in Korean, plus an English translation and an audio recording. Occasionally, there is also additional information or a more detailed explanation, or some contrasting examples. After each lesson, you will find the actual flashcards that you will use to learn and remember the information. Usually, there are between 3 and 7 after each lesson. At first, they contain just words, and then a few lessons in, you will start seeing sentences, and they build up in difficulty as you learn more and more. The flashcards consist of the word or grammar you are learning, an example sentence which I highly recommend you read and review, an audio recording for the sentence, and an audio recording for the word. Then you have a sentence translation, sometimes with a natural or a word-for-word translation to help you understand the structure of the Korean sentence better, the word translation, and information on the word type and pronunciation. I know that's a lot of information, and I will share my suggested workflow with you later into the video to avoid getting overwhelmed. In total, there are 340 lessons and 1,676 vocabulary cards, and I will share how that compares to other Korean learning resources in just a second. So by the end of Korean Academy 1, after roughly 4 to 6 months depending on how fast you go, how fluent are you really? Well, not at all, because you don't practice speaking with this Academy course. So if you're planning on learning some Korean phrases for your upcoming Korea trip, then this course is probably not what you're looking for. But by the end of roughly 4 to 6 months, you can listen to podcasts like this.
아침에 6시에 일어나서 준비하고 출근했어요.
Watch videos like this.
사무실에 왔어요. 사무실에서 일을 해요. 여기저기 포스트잇이 붙어 있어요.
Or read texts like this, without too much issue. Sure, you'll still come across words you don't know, and of course, if you don't practice your listening skills, you're not going to learn how to listen from just doing flashcards. But by the end of the course, you should have an expansive enough grammar understanding to where you can decipher the structure of a Korean sentence without much issue. Especially if you make use of other tools Migaku offers to look up unknown words, for example. Normal K-dramas and novels will still be a little too difficult to enjoy fully, but even those you will likely be able to pick out words and phrases. What I found to be the biggest perk is that by the time I was getting close to finishing the academy course, I was at a level where I could already start sentence mining from the content I just mentioned, and the transition was actually super smooth. I also made a video of me reading graded readers for the first time at about the 4 months mark, so if you're looking for a live demonstration of my level at the time, feel free to check that out. Compared to other Korean grammar and/or vocabulary courses like Talk to Me in Korean and Korean Grammar in Use, the Korean Academy one covers a lot of similar content as well. For Talk to Me in Korean, you learn all of level 1 to 4, a lot of level 5 and 6, and a few grammar points of level 7 to 10. For Korean Grammar and Use, it covers all of the beginner grammar, and I want to say about a quarter or a third of intermediate grammar. Okay, to succeed with this course, I think there are a few things you should keep in mind. First, it is pretty heavy on the grammar. Not on grammar drills or exercises, but on introducing many different forms and concepts to you in a pretty short amount of time. If all you do is go through the course and do your flashcards, you will not retain that information very well. To really get the most out of the course and take advantage of its structure, you need to do your listening practice and reading practice alongside the course, also to reinforce the words and grammar patterns you've already learned in the course. You don't have to get started right on the first day, and it doesn't have to take hours and hours every single day, but once you learn like 200, 300 words, you can check out the Migaku playlist that have some easy Korean video suggestions, or you find yourself a graded reader and you start practicing your listening and reading skills. Start with just one video a day, 10-20 minutes, doesn't even have to be that long, just really focus on the sounds and try to listen for things you can already understand, pick up words and grammar patterns that you already learned in the academy. I know it will not be easy in the beginning, but I guarantee you, you will already find words that you know, and you will already be able to recognize grammar patterns just because of how much you learn in the academy. And then as you progress through the course, you will be able to unlock more and more content you can watch. The course is written really well. It makes the transition to learning from content really easy, but you need to have the motivation or discipline in you to actually go through it. At whatever pace, right? It is pretty flexible in how fast or slow you want to take it, but there's no teacher to tell you to do your homework every day, and nobody will come to tell you to do your reviews or remind you to do your listening practice. Okay, I think that was just important to mention because I don't want anyone to have wrong expectations. This is how I approached the course. Of course, you can do whatever you want, but I feel like this worked really well for me in terms of progressing through the course and still retaining a lot of the information. First, read the lesson carefully and try to understand the concept that it teaches. In the early lessons, this will be a lot easier, but the later lessons might require you to pay some more attention to understand the concept. Then, once you did that, read through the examples carefully. See which part of the example this lesson is about, and check if you understand everything in the sentence. It is totally normal to forget words along the way, and Migaku makes it really easy to just look them up by clicking on them. So do that and see if it helps. Also, listen to the audio maybe multiple times. Try to really listen to how things connect, words connect, the sentence flows. And if you want to, maybe repeat it a few times yourself. But remember, the goal is not to learn it by heart, but just to understand what is going on in the sentence, to understand its structure. Once you went through all the examples, you can start doing your flashcards, meaning you can start learning the sentences. For the flashcard, I like to have it show me the entire sentence, not the word and the sentence, because as I said, the course is pretty heavy on grammar, and I think reviewing the grammar is way better done through seeing the sentence rather than just trying to memorize the word. So I usually read the sentence, try to understand it, see if I understand all the grammatical forms, if I understand how the parts go together, and then I flip it to check if I knew all the information. And obviously this is a pretty automatic process, like when you see a sentence, you know whether you understood it or not. If you did, great, pass it. If you didn't, try to understand why you didn't understand it. Was it that you didn't know a word? Was it that you didn't understand the grammar form? Being analytical like this with your language learning is super, super important because otherwise the information just goes in one ear, out the other, and you'll have forgotten everything by the next day. So be an active learner. Finally, I want to give my suggestion for how many cards you should learn each day, which is a bit different from what I would usually recommend for flashcards because of the way the Korean Academy is structured. Usually, I always recommend people to start out with about 10 cards a day, do that for a week or two and see how you feel. If it's totally overwhelming, you can't remember the cards very well, go down to 7, go down to 5. If it's really easy and you feel like you can do a lot more, try 15, try 20, and then keep doing that for a few weeks again and see how you feel about it. Okay, this is what I would usually recommend to people. However, in the Academy course, when you learn, let's say, 5 cards a day, and lesson 1 has 4 cards, and lesson 2 has another 4 cards, you will learn the 4 cards from lesson 1, and then you will only end up seeing the first card of lesson 2 today, because that's when you reach your 5 cards for the day. And then the other 3 cards from lesson 2 would be shown to you tomorrow. Now, this is just personal preference, but I like to see all cards that belong to one lesson on the same day that I learned the lesson. So, to prevent this issue from happening, what I did is set my daily cards really high, higher than the average number of cards I want to learn, and then I dynamically decide how many cards I learned that day. For example, let's say on average I want to learn 10 cards a day. And today I already finished 2 lessons and learned 9 cards. And I see a new lesson start. If I set my new cards to only 10, I would only see 1 more card in the new lesson. But as I said, I want to see all cards, so I set my new cards to 20. And now I can decide, do I want to enter this new lesson and learn another 4 or 5 cards, bringing me to a total of 13 to 14 cards for the day, or do I want to leave it at 9 for the day and start the new lesson the next day? Because maybe I'm busy or I'm already tired, and 9 is close to the 10 I want anyways. Of course, you can totally go through the course with a set number of cards each day. I just found this to work a lot better for me. Finally, let's talk about the price, because of course, a course like this is not just going to be available for free. Migaku offers different subscription plans with which you unlock all of their features, including all courses for all languages and their software. They have a standard plan for 10 USD a month and an early access plan for 15 USD that gives you early access to newer features. So if you're just interested in checking out the Korean course, you can use the link in the description and either get a 10-day free trial or get a 30-day free trial upon your first purchase. Basically a buy one, get two kind of deal. You using that link would also help me out. As a final pointer, if you do end up liking Migaku and are considering getting the lifetime plan one day, Migaku does have major sales, like up to 50-60% for many holidays and occasions, so it is 100% worth waiting for those. I hope this guide review was useful. If you have any questions about either the course or how I use the course to learn Korean, feel free to leave them in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. I'll probably be starting the Korean Academy too sometime later this year, so there will definitely be a review of that probably sometime next year. In the meantime, I would be happy to see you in the Migaku Discord.